You are listening to Coach's Corner with John Anderson on the CompuSports Radio Network.
Hi, everyone. I'm John Anderson. I'm your host here on Coach's Corner on the CompuSports Radio Network. My guest this week is currently at Coronado High School in Lubbock, Texas. We're going to have Coach James Vint. He's going to be talking about myths and advantages of the shotgun, concepts from the pistol, basic spread run concepts, and marrying these concepts with the passing game. This is a truly great interview, a lot of information in from probably one of the most humble coaches I think I've ever talked to. And Coach Vint also covers how to make the spread work with what you've already got in place now. Coach James Vint, next. No one can buy the love that's not behind her.
At CompuSportsMedia.com, our job is to make your job easier and make you a more effective coach. Improve your scouting, game planning, and video analysis with Easy Scout XP Plus and the new Video Scouting edition of Easy Scout Professional. They're powerful, flexible, and affordable, building better game plans for over 25 years. Stretch your dollars with software for scoring and statistics, practice planning, equipment management, and video editing, all from leading publishers and ready for instant download. Improve your defense with ebooks like the highly acclaimed The Master Defense and the 30-Stack Defense, a comprehensive guide to designing and installing a pressure defense. Turbocharge your offense with ebooks from Jerry Campbell, including his latest, Taking the Option Game to the Next Level, and a classic from one of the fathers of option football, Larry Beckish, The Trap Option 40 plus 60 equals Option. All the tools you need, priced right, to make this a winning season from CompuSportsMedia.com.
Love your football? Coach's Corner starts now.
This segment is brought to you by Option Central. OptionCentral.net. Everything option in one convenient place. My guest today started out at Christopher Columbus High School in the Bronx. And from there, he makes the leap to Iowa Wesleyan. So he goes from the Bronx to the cornfields, he goes to Truman State, and now he is in Lubbock, Texas at Coronado High School. Welcome today's guest, James Vint. Coach, welcome to Coach's Corner.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's really an honor.
That is one heck of a leap.
Grew up in Iowa, and I graduated college and got on the wrong plane and didn't have enough money to get back from the Bronx, and ended up settling there, and it was one of those things that just happened. And I had a great opportunity come up, and it was one of those things people always say, how'd you get from Iowa to the Bronx? And if you look at me, I don't look like I belong there, and I don't talk like I belong there. But I had met a gentleman. I worked at a sports camp while I was in college in the Northeast, and I met the high school basketball coach, Howard Kaplan, at Coronado High School. And when I got done with college, was looking for coaching and teaching jobs, and as they say, it's who you know. And I think God put us together for a reason, because it opened up a door there. And it was a phenomenal experience, and it was very, very bittersweet to leave the Bronx, because I was getting back closer to home. I was going to be a coordinator at the college level, but at the same time, leaving a program that I'd fallen in love with and become a part of and still feel like I'm a part of it.
So you go from the Bronx to home, basically, at Iowa Wesleyan. You go to Truman State. Where is Truman State?
It's in Kirksville, Missouri, and it's about a 2-hour drive from Iowa Wesleyan. It wasn't a big leap, but it was a jump in division, moving up to NCAA Division II and in the MIAA, which is arguably the top conference in Division II football. There's a lot of people that argue with me about that. If you're in the Gulf South, you think the Gulf South's the best. If you think you're in the MIAA, they're the best. And if you're in the Lone Star, that's the best. But the MIAA's had someone in or winning the national championship, I think, every year since 2003.
So you make your progression slowly south and continue down to Lubbock, Texas.
That's right. I met, while I was at Truman State, at Iowa Wesleyan, I recruited the Northeast just because I had such a connection there. So we built a pretty good pipeline out of New York and New Jersey. At Truman State, we had a big Texas pipeline, and I was asked to recruit parts of Texas. And through that, I also met my wife, who lives in West Texas. She teaches kindergarten here in Lubbock. And I came down to visit her and several times, and of course mixed in a little recruiting. I don't know which was the reason I came, but it was great, and we ended up getting married last summer. And that opened up a door here.
Great story as far as your travels. You're well-traveled. I'm waiting for you to accept a position in the Ukraine. Then you could truly be the globe-trotting coach.
I don't know if I could survive in the cold after being down here in West Texas.
Coach, first of all, thank you for taking time to come on the program. We had a discussion prior to your coming on, and I was very fascinated by your choice of topics today, and that being basically the offense out of the shotgun and different parts of it that you wanted to talk about. And you put together a very nice presentation in regards to this. You've made some points which really relate to me and my experiences, because you mentioned a couple of areas where you say, number one, you start to go through the myths of the shotgun, one of which where the gun is only a passing offense. And a lot of people said the run and shoot was a passing offense in the 80s because they perceived that as being a passing first formation. Never mind that we ran more than 50% of the time out of it. But it's the perception.
That's right. And it was funny how we ended up in the shotgun. I know you've had Jerry Campbell on your show. And Jerry is a great man who kind of just, I'm going to say he's my dad was a coach, and Jerry's kind of like my coaching stepdad. So I got two great men that I can look up to in coaching. And back in the late 90s, when he was really big in the option on me stuff, he came up, he did a camp for us up in the Bronx. And that was a Texas connection that I made football coaching once, which has been very, very valuable. And Coach Campbell came up, and we did this clinic, and it was great, and we put the option in, and we were running the ball real well. And the next year he comes up and says, Coach, you got to look at the zone read stuff out of the gun. And no one was really doing it yet. Before Bowling Green did it with Urban Meyer, he had a few people dabbling with it. And as soon as we got in the gun, it emptied the box out. It was the most amazing thing. We still ran the ball 80% of the time at that point. But we went from seeing 9-man fronts, where they'd screw those two safeties down into the box. And now we're not seeing those safeties are back at 10, 11 yards. Or we're seeing them spinning into cover 3, and we're getting 8-man fronts. And just that perception, like you said, being in the gun. And the funny thing about the run and shoot is who did the NFL in rushing for several years in the 80s? It was Barry Sanders. They weren't in a two-back offense. They were in run and shoot.
They were in run and shoot, and then you had Lorenzo White and some others. A terrific running back trio down with the Houston Oilers at that time as well in the early 90s.
Right.
That perception is still there, and you mentioned Jerry Campbell being on the program. He's also a sponsor of the program. We've also had Shane Loss from AC Reynolds. He came on the show. We were talking the running game out of the gun. If you look at the film that he brought down to Charlotte to the Glazer Clinic down there, he's got a potent running offense out of that formation. And then we had John Bland of the University of the Cumberlands on here some time back, and he was also talking about the running game out of the gun. So the perception is definitely there, and when you put all the pieces together, it's very interesting how you guys are turning this into a run-first formation.
Well, and I think if you really look at who's successful in football year in, year out, at every level, you have to be able to run the ball. There's some pretty good teams that can throw it, but I think you've got to be able to run the ball consistently. And in the gun, I think it allows you to be able to do both. And in the Bronx, a lot of people ask me, how's football in the Bronx? And I can tell you this, we never really had a kid come in that was a quarterback. One of the other advantages to being in the gun is I know that if I have to coach a guy to take a 7-step drop, that's 7 times that I can screw that up as a coach and 7 times that he could screw it up as a player in those steps. But if I can cut that down to 3 steps, well, that's a heck of a lot easier. I know that makes me a better coach, and it's going to make him a better player. So that's the other thing about it is when we do want to throw, we don't have to spend as much time teaching drops. And it's a little bit more comfortable for those kids, and the better they are, the easier it is.
We're talking with Coach James Vint out of Coronado High School in Lubbock, Texas. That's where he's landed, at least currently, before he heads to the Ukraine. No, I'm just kidding, Coach. You're listening to Coach's Corner on the CompuSports Radio Network. We'll have more right after this.
love your football? Coach's Corner resumes after this break.
Free to decide, you're free to be.
Coaches helping coaches. We have all heard this is the message behind Jerry Campbell Football. Now, Coach Campbell has upgraded his website to make it easier for you to navigate and find material you need quickly to become a more effective and knowledgeable coach. Jerry Campbell Football has books and DVDs available, whether it be offense, defense, resume preparation, the kicking game, or PowerPoint training. Jerry Campbell Football has what you need to build your knowledge base. Whether from using a traditional approach to cutting-edge technology, you can enhance your knowledge in nearly any area. All this and more at www.jerrycampbellfootball.com. That's www.jerrycampbellfootball.com. Coach Jerry Campbell's latest book, The Hybrid Pistol Wing T, now available at jerrycampbellfootball.com. My guest is James Vint, the defensive line and special teams coordinator now at Coronado High School in Lubbock, Texas. But before that, he was an accomplished offensive coordinator at Iowa Wesleyan and did all sorts of things at Christopher Columbus High School in the Bronx. So he's still got a little offense left in him. But for some reason, he's crossed over into the dark side, to the defensive side of the ball. So, Coach, you've made some points concerning myths of the shotgun. We've already discussed a couple of them. You have another point where you say the snap is too easy to fumble.
A lot what we were realizing when we first went into the gun, when you're an offensive coordinator running the offense and the head coach gives you that freedom, the one thing you don't want to hear when you make the transition to the gun is, hey, get back under center. And when we started looking at the statistics, our first foray into the gun back in '99, it was a part-time thing. It was an occasional thing. It was a change-up. Mm-hmm. And what we found through the season, there's nothing worse than fumbling a snap on 3rd and 2. And we had more fumbled snaps under center than we did out of the gun. And when you fumble a snap under center, you have a tendency to lose it because the mesh of bodies right there, it's just a mess. And in the gun, quarterback's 4.5 to 5 yards back. So when he does bobble the snap or you get a bad one, 99% of the time you're going to, in fact, we've never lost one. And that's what we found is it's a little bit easier actually to secure the snap. And I don't think it's any more difficult on the center. Yes, instead of reaching it to his crotch, he's got to reach the ball or release it. But if you rep it, we spend 5 minutes a day pre-practice working on our snaps. That's all it takes.
I'm going to play devil's advocate for just a moment on this. And there's 2 points to the argument here. One of which is you're going to get, at some point, you're going to get a center who it's going to be a mystery as to where the ball is going to come out at. It could be rolling on the ground. It could fire over the quarterback's head, the left, the right. It could come as a knuckleball. You're going to get one of those one of these days, and that's one point. The second of which is that you have coaches out there who believe that it's better to have their quarterback under center because even as he takes the ball out from under center, he can see the defense. He doesn't have to take his eyes off of the defense in order to get the ball and then refocus again. What are your answers to that particular argument?
They're both valid points. And the biggest thing we work every day, number one, if a kid can't snap, he's probably not going to play center. We feel like in the gun we can pretty much take any kid and make him a center, and a lot of guys will tell you that's where they're going to put their weakest offensive lineman. Under center, you can't do it because if he gets blown up by a 6'2", 270, if Warren Sapp's playing nose and you're under center, your center's got to be a hoss because he can't get knocked into the quarterback. In the gun, I don't think it allows that to happen, so you don't necessarily need that guy. We're going to find a guy who can get the ball to the quarterback consistently. With that said, there are always going to be snaps that aren't perfect, and what we want to do is have consistency, and we work a bad snap drill with our quarterbacks. And every day when they're taking those snaps, in 5 minutes, they should be able to get 25 snaps. We want about 10 of those to be snaps that are outside of his framework. So we work that drill and teach them to step to, and what we tell them is step to the football. Step to the football. Don't reach with your hands. Step and get your body in front of the ball. And as far as taking your eyes off the ball, here's how I look at that. Once we secure the snap, our eyes, we don't have to go backwards, so our eyes are always on the defense. We're always seeing what they're doing. Under center, if we're going to run power or ISO or counter tray or any of that, what's the first thing the center does when he takes or the quarterback does when he takes the snap?
He has to turn his body.
He opens up and he goes backwards. Now, there's nothing wrong with that because we're going to occasionally turn and have our head not facing the defense. But for the most part in the gun, we're always seeing what all 11 guys are doing. And I think that's a tremendous advantage that we like in the gun. I don't want to say we never, but we very rarely are going backwards on a run play. And I think that's important.
All right, another myth that you have listed is your line must be in a 2-point stance in the gun. Now, even I have a problem with that particular one because even in the run and shoot, we proved a 2-point stance you can run the ball.
I think you can run the ball from a 2-point. We just found that when we got in a 3-point stance, that we were a little more effective. At Iowa Wesleyan, our guards were in a 3-point. Our tackles were in a 2-point for the most part. So I think you can, whatever works best for you, you can do. I don't think there is a right or wrong answer there.
No, I agree with you there. I definitely have to agree with you because I think if you can get them in a 2-point stance throughout the game, to run the ball and pass the ball, I actually think you are at an advantage because you're not going to tip as much as whether it's going to be a run or a pass out of a 2-point as opposed to a 3-point.
Well, and, I think also if you are in a 3, it's something you've got to drill. A good stance that's consistent and never changes. So I think that's important. Like you said, our guys are making calls. Now as a D-line coach, we're looking at the offensive lineman's knuckles. And if we see that his knuckles are white because he's leaning forward, you'll hear our guys say, white, white, white. It's a run. Let's go. It's a run or you're getting cut. And if he sit back on his heels, now they're going to make a black for back. Black, black, black. So if we start hearing that, you're exactly right. It's very important on the offensive side of the ball that you don't tip. And I'm going to tell you, we played guys that would get they'd be in a 3-point when they run, and they'd be in a 2-point when they pass. And I never could understand that.
Talk about dictating.
Tell us, why don't you just hold a sign up that says run or pass? Hey, if that's the way they're going to do it, that's the way they're going to do it. But I think you're exactly right. You cannot, whatever you do, you need to be consistent.
If you're that good, maybe it doesn't matter if you tip it off.
Well, and one of the funniest things that we did, you're looking back at some old film from 2001 when we were pretty darn good, and seeing us as coaches just going, run it again, and the quarterback's running up to the line going, same play, same play. That's demoralizing for a defense, and it sure is nice. Unfortunately, we didn't get to do that very often. But when you're better than someone and you can bet, there's people that we all know them, we've all played them, and a few of us have coached them, where hey, we're running right here. Let's go.
You also make another point that you can't block the box if you spread the field.
Yeah, the thing that people, the first, and remember, I was taking a group of coaches that had never been in the gun and had never done anything other than, they'd been in the eye a little bit, they'd never have more than 2 receivers on the field. So it was all going to be new. Typically we were power eye or eye, and saying, guys, we're going to have 4 wide receivers on the field. They looked at me like I was a little bit crazy. How are we going to block everybody? Well, because when we get those guys out, we don't have to block them. And I can tell you this, if we can get a guy out of the box and not have to block him, we're going to be a lot better. We cannot block a guy better than we can block him, and I bet every offensive coordinator and offensive line coach in America will tell you that. If we don't have to block the will linebacker because he has to step out on our number 2 receiver, we feel a lot better about that. It's an amazing thing. And then if they don't come out to cover our receivers, then we're going to throw the football, and that's where we get into our uncovered rules.
My guest is James Vint. Right now, he's the defensive line and special teams coordinator down Coronado High School in Lubbock, Texas. That is before he heads to Finland to accept his next. But no, I'm kidding. I'm going to have fun with this all day. I can see that now. You're listening to Coach's Corner on the CompuSports Radio Network.
over a quarter century, CompuSports has provided high-quality, easy-to-use coaching software to high school and college football coaches at prices that do an end-around on limited athletic budgets. Our Easy Scout line of football scouting and video editing software improves the process of collecting, organizing, and analyzing information about the plays in a game, helping coaches save time while gaining a competitive edge. Easy Scout products have always been easy to learn, easy to use, and built to adapt to a football coach's own terminology. The current version of the Easy Scout Professional scouting and video editing system delivers the kind of analysis and reporting capabilities that can cost up to 5 times as much. CompuSports Easy Scout software, because game day is only part of your job.
This segment of Coach's Corner is sponsored by CompuSports, publisher of the Easy Scout Professional, an affordable all-in-one football scouting and editing program. Easy Scout Professional, available at CompuSports.com.
My guest is James Vint. He is the defensive line special teams coach at Coronado High School in Lubbock, Texas, a 5A school. And, Coach, we were talking myths of the shotgun, and now let's go ahead and get into some of the concepts, some of the advantages of the gun.
Well, you know, it's funny because sometimes we think we're on the cutting edge. And I got a video from the 1980s, Homer Smith. And Homer Smith is up there, and he's talking about the shotgun, and he draws up an empty formation, and he says, this is the best run formation in football if anyone would have the guts to use it. And he spent the next hour talking about different run concepts from empty and then from the one-back stuff. And what he was describing looked eerily similar to what Tim Tebow was doing at Florida 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it was really, really interesting to see how far ahead Homer Smith was with some of these concepts. And what he talked about that was really important, that we mentioned earlier, was being able to clear the box out so you have less guys to block. When you are in let's say you're in a 2-by-2 formation in the gun, your quarterback is a runner. You still have 2 backs in the backfield. So the defense technically has to play you with a stand box. But you also have 4 wides. So with 4 wides, they can't defend 4 with 4 unless they're going to play man. So what we're getting at here with having the ability in the gun to be able to read a defender and have our quarterback become a second back and our fullback becomes lead blocker, we have the ability to run all of our 2-back stuff while still being able to spread the defense out with 4 wide. And if we want to go empty and have the quarterback be our main runner, and essentially run your one-back zone, your one-back power, your one-back counter stuff, you can still have 5 receivers. So that means the defense, they can play you with a 6-man box, but they've got to play man in the secondary. They've got to lock it down behind you. Well, if they want to go, now if they want to cover the passing game, they have to have at least 6 pass defenders to cover your 5 receivers. And then they can play man free, or basically 3 deep, 3 under. But then they only have 5 to defend the run, and you've got 5 blockers. So you see what I'm getting at there is that concept of your quarterback being able to be a runner forces the defense now to have to keep people in the box and make a choice. And we used to say they can choose the electric chair or lethal injection. But they're going to be wrong no matter what they do. And I think that's important. That's a big advantage, is forcing the defense to have to defend your 4 or 5 receivers while still having to defend all of your run game. Now, the second area, Urban Meyer exploited, but back at Bowling Green and at Utah, and of course, everybody's doing some form of it now, but the zone read, where we're going to take and we're not going to block the backside 5 technique, and we're going to make him wrong. So we have a simple rule with our quarterbacks. So any play where we're reading the backside 5 technique, our quarterback knew squeeze and chase, pull and replace. If that 5 technique squeezes and chases the ball carrier, I'm going to pull the football and I'm going to replace where he was. I'm going to go where he was because that's the area that's been vacated. If he does anything else, I give the football and I carry out a fake like I still have it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Squeeze and chase, pull and replace. So that was a huge advantage. We could now take, and let's say that, let's just use, for example, that we're in a 2x2 set, the old run and shoot 2x2. Twins to both sides. Well, now we have our quarterback and running back backfield. Let's say our running back set to the right side. Well, we're going to run zone to the left, but instead of having the quarterback under center, turning to his left, going backwards and handing the ball off and not being a run threat, we're going to have the back next to the quarterback. We're going to have the quarterback basically step at 45. We used to say step at 45 or flat step to 45 and short step. The back is going to cross in front of him. The quarterback is going to reach deep and ride the back just like you would in any type of option play, a veer play, and he's going to read that 5 technique. And I'm going to tell you this, no matter how well you coach those 5 techniques, if you hold a stake out in front of a dog long enough, he's going to chase it. And that's what that football is. It's a big stake. Squeeze and chase, pull and replace. So I think that was a big, big advantage of being in the gun. Now, the second step of that is what they start to do. They start to have 5 technique, squeeze, and then they bring the will linebacker over the top to play quarterback. So after running this for a little while, pretty soon that's what we started to see. That defensive end would squeeze, and he'd play our quarterback, or he'd chase the running back, rather. Our quarterback would pull the football, and he'd get hit in the mouth by the will linebacker. So now you got to have another answer for that. And that was our next concept, which we tell our tackle, if he crosses your face, wash him down. Now we just read the will. And what happens is that will linebacker's getting wide, so he doesn't get leveraged by the quarterback. We end up giving the ball to the back, and it ends up being a downhill run play through the backside B gap. Just a huge hole. And then, of course, you start adding the quarterback counter. So now you ride the back to hold the backside. The quarterback pulls the ball, and you're counter blocking for the quarterback on the same side. And that's really a son of a gun. So those were really the concepts for being able to read the backside 5 technique, then take advantage, and instead of reading the 5 technique, read the C gap, and then from there, block the quarterback run on the backside and use the fake to the back to hold the opposite side.
And one of the things that we start to look at the passing game, the quarterback already has depth. He can throw a one-step pass. You can utilize your entire quick passing game package. It gives him an extra little bit of time to see the defense, even as a intermediate range passer. But he still has to be able to throw the ball enough to be effective. But he still has to be of a threat to be a runner to have the defense chasing him around.
Well, and, I think, obviously, Tim Tebow kind of exemplified what people did with this. And you feel there was a high school team a few years ago up in Wisconsin who had a quarterback who was a big, strong, fast kid who could run and throw. And watching them, we were recruiting the quarterback, so watching them do this stuff, it was the ideal situation where you have the best of both worlds. I don't think you need to have a burner at quarterback, and I don't think you need to have Joe Montana at quarterback. And I'll tell you what we look for, and what we look for at the college level even, it wasn't the guy who had a great arm, and it wasn't the guy who could run. It was a guy who had a great head and could command the field. We can tailor this offense to fit him. And if he's a guy who can throw the ball accurately and throw the intermediate ball accurately and throw a little bit on the run from play action in the sprint out game, we're going to be just fine. We don't need a guy who can. I think that's an advantage. You don't need a guy that can sit in the pocket and throw. If you have him, boy, that is great. But, kids today, it's a different ball game. You're not seeing as many kids that come out and want to be in that pro style, 21 personnel, 11 personnel offense. Kids are playing this game on the PlayStation. They want to play basketball on grass. They want to play fast break football. Well, we can do that in this offense and still be able to run the daggone football a lot. And I think that's what's a lot of fun. When I speak at clinics and talk to guys, I'll say, I want to give you concepts, and I'll show you all the plays in the world, but make them yours. Let your own creativity take over. Just keep it as simple as you can for your offensive line so that you can do some of these things and have a little bit of fun.
My guest is James Vint. He is with Coronado High School right now down in Lubbock, Texas. If his name rings a bell, if you came in here a little bit late, if you remember him being at somewhere in Iowa Wesleyan, yes, we're talking to the same guest. We'll be right back with more Coach Vint. You're listening to Coach's Corner on the CompuSports Radio Network.
Easy Cut from CompuSports is a fast and enjoyable way to edit and analyze your game videos. Watch entire games on your computer, then label and index plays with a click of a mouse. Copy scenes to CD, DVD, or a memory stick, and upload to online video sharing sites like YouTube. Search and sort plays by keywords, then pause, restart, rewind, and even watch frame by frame for fast and detailed video analysis. Easy Cut is compatible with XP, Vista, and Windows 7. Download the 21-day free trial now or order on CD and discover how easy it is to start analyzing your game videos today.
This segment of Coach's Corner is sponsored by CompuSports, publisher of the Easy Cut video editing software program. Easy Cut works for any sport and starts at just $195. Easy Cut, the affordable video editing software, available at CompuSports.com.
You can be my best friend when the time is right with those around you, but your story changes when the crowd goes home. What a story.
Coach James Vint is my guest today here on Coach's Corner. He is right now playing defensive line and special teams coordinator down at Coronado High School in Lubbock, Texas. But we've been talking offense because he's an offensive guy who's just kind of crossed over into some of those shaded areas. You guys know how I feel about defensive, well, not all defensive guys, just particular defensive guys who tried to make my life a living nightmare. But it's okay. I'm over the trauma now. Coach, let's go ahead and talk pistol.
Yeah, it was interesting. People say, well, how'd you get in the pistol? And what was going on when we got into that, the stuff we were talking about, when we started reading that backside five technique, everybody started playing some games with it. And of course, they're messing with your mesh, and they're slowing down your ability to be aggressive. And we want to dictate who carries the ball. We don't want to let the defense be able to do that. And we wanted to eliminate some of those games. And whatever side our back was set to, well, obviously that's where they know that side we're going to mesh to. But what happened was our young coach who played for us, and he comes in, he goes, I think I got a solution to this. I said, what's that? He said, let's put the back behind the quarterback. I said, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. Don't even come in here with that. Who would do something like that? Well, maybe it's why Chris also bad. It's one of those things. No. 2 weeks later, it was not only did it stop teams from being able to know what side we're meshing, but it also helped our pass protection game. Because usually we tap to whichever side we're sliding. Well, now our back is directly behind the quarterback. They don't know which side we're sliding. Now, here's the other advantage. We still like to run power. We like to run counter trey. The problem with being able to run those, we could run them from the gun and we could read the five technique, and it was great. What if we just wanted to gift the dadgum ball downhill? We'd go back under center once in a while. Well, now we put that back directly behind the quarterback. Now he can take the ball and hand the – now he doesn't have to run back to give it. He just opens up to whatever side we want him to open up to. And he hands the ball to the back. And we said, all right, so now we started using our H-back, and we lined him up an offset back, or as what we call a hit back or a slot. And now we could have our H-back lead. We can run ISO. We can run power. And we don't have to set him. See, under center, we'd usually set him to the same side of the play. Well, now, in the pistol, we could offset that H-back to the right side and still run power to the left and have him kick out the left side defensive end. I mean, that gave us the best of both worlds. Now, we could start incorporating all of our option stuff, so we could run inside veer, we could run outside veer, we could run load option, and we could do all that without having to motion somebody to be a pitch man, and we didn't have to give all those defensive tendencies. So all of a sudden now in the pistol, we can run our downhill run game as well as our zone read and option game without having to go under center and then come back out from center. If that makes sense to you?
It does.
Yeah, I think we became much tougher to defend because we've now taken him everything that we were doing from the gun to everything we were doing from under center. But we no longer had to get under center and then to run, say, power or ISO. And we no longer had to get into the gun to run our pass game or our zone read stuff. So we could do it all. We could run our option game, we could run our downhill run game, and we could do it all from the pistol with one or two backs. And the other advantage, too, it allowed us to take, let's say that we're running, let's use veer option to the right. Our back could be our back, either back could be our pitch back. And we could even motion our fullback out of the backfield and use an inside receiver to be the pitch back. So that made it especially difficult for the defense to defend. I just think it gave us the ability. I'm going to go ahead and say that I wasn't the smartest guy in the room by far. In fact, I was one of the slowest, and I think it's that way as a coach. So if we could do things to keep people off balance, it could offset our coaching deficiencies.
I can remember, and this goes back to I'm thinking 97, 98, when Lou Holtz first went to South Carolina. He brought his son Skip down there to run the offense. And their base play was basically the power handoff over the tight end, basically. Back is offset to the left-hand side. He's coming across the quarterback's face. He's taking the handoff and going over the tight end with just your basic power play right out of the 50s and 60s and 70s. That was the base play that South Carolina had, and I had film upon film upon film, and I'm trying to run that exact same play against all these Southeast Conference defenses. Well, eventually, their offensive talent caught up with them to be able to compete in the Southeast Conference. So Lou Holtz retires. He goes on. Now in comes Steve Spurrier. And we've seen this evolution over the last 12, 13, 14 years of people being creative, people understanding the concepts and being able to take the talent that they have and put it to use.
Yeah, and I think, and that's something, too, with that power play. What's the toughest part for us was when we get that backside three technique. When we were into power for us, power was we're going to kick out the defensive end or out of the 9 technique on the front side. The D-gap player, we're going to kick him out. We're going to double team the C-gap player. Okay, we're going to double team the B-gap player. Or basically going to down block or zone away, and we're going to wall this thing off, and then we're going to kick out, and then we're going to pull the backside guard. What the tough part about that becomes is when you get that accounting for the backside 3 technique, and here's one of the advantages of the pistol. So we're running this power play, but instead of having the center block back on the 3 technique and hoping that our guard wraps up to the backside linebacker, what we started doing is we started reading that 3 technique. So now we're running power, but instead of opening up to the play, the quarterback uses midline footwork. He meshes the back, and then the back bends it front side, and the quarterback reads the 3 technique. So now you're running that old power play from the 60s, but you're running it as an option. You can do it under center. You can't read it. Now we're reading the backside 3 technique. If he squeezes and chases the back, the quarterback's going to get downhill. Let me tell you the size of that hole that opens up. Because what's that backside linebacker doing? He sees guard pull. He's out. He's out the front door. He's gone. So what happens now is if that 3 technique squeezes and chases, and what's he taught? Get in the hip pocket of pullers. So he's getting in the hip pocket of the puller. We're pulling the football, getting downhill, gaining some yards.
He's replacing feet. He's chasing the running back, and the quarterback's saying, "Oh boy, ice cream for lunch."
That's right. And then he gets upfield, and the only way for people to stop that now is they have to assign that linebacker, tell that backside backer, you have to slow play this thing. Well, what does that do? Well, now we're going to give the ball, and that backside guard who's pulling can now get up and get him blocked. It allows that when the guard pulls, the only way they can stop this thing is to hold that backside linebacker. So that gives the guard time to get around and get him blocked. If because he can't fast play this thing. He's got to slow play it because he's got to check quarterback first. So they have to, what we're forcing them to do now, instead of being able to react and run to the football, is they've got to play assignment football in our power game. And that makes things just a little bit more difficult. And what was interesting was we had a play where we didn't block the front side 3 technique. The front side. It was a mistake. We weren't supposed to be reading him. So we're running power. We don't block the front side 3 technique. Of course, he takes the running back. The quarterback sees this 3 tech come upfield, and he pulls the football, and he follows the pulling guard. Well, what happens out of that? Well, you're starting to see people do this now, is this inverted veer play, where they read it's a wide run play for the back, and you read the 3 or the 5 technique. If you widen, pull the football and get downhill. If he does anything else, give the football. So now we're starting to see that come out, and we're starting to see Oregon ran a ton of it this year. There were several other teams running it, and that was the next evolution. So getting the pistol, we can still run all of our power stuff. We can run our sweep stuff, but we've added another option element. So now people have to game plan to defend not only your option game where you're reading a front side or a backside 5 technique, but where you're also reading a 3 technique. We can tag it where we read the backside backer, or we can read a front side backer. We can basically tag and read anybody without changing the blocking scheme. We're just saying, hey, don't block him, we're reading it. So this stuff of being able to get in the gun and then get into the pistol adds so much versatility. And again, it makes us better coaches because we can not block a guy better than we can block him. And I once heard Gunnar Brewer, who I believe now is at Miss, and he was at Oklahoma State, and he's been around. And Brewer was talking, and he said, the less dudes that we have to block, the better the play's going to be. We want to get our athletes the ball in open space and not have to block as many guys. And that's what we're looking to do with this read game. We're going to block as few guys as we can and try to get the best athletes football in open space.
James Vint is my guest. He's at Coronado High School in Lubbock, Texas. And we've been talking the pistol, we've been talking the shotgun, advantages, all sorts of things. And there's more coming on Coach's Corner on the CompuSports Radio Network. Back after this. Some of you folks are aware of OptionCentral.net. Some of you may even have had a membership to OptionCentral.net at one time. What many folks don't know is that Option Central has become the premier site for all things option football, with contributions from coaches from Massachusetts to California, from coaches like Joe Sells, Mark Snow, Jerry Campbell, Steve Ellison, Don Herman, and many others. Option Central is the place to learn many of the concepts that can help you with ideas for offensive success. And anyone who has heard this program for any length of time knows that I give defensive guys a hard time. But there are even a few articles that they can benefit from as well. There are even videos up there too. OptionCentral.net. I'm there, and you should be too.
This is the CompuSports Radio Network. This is the CompuSports Radio Network.
My guest is James Vint. He is also a very well-written author. Some of the things that I found out today in doing a little bit more research. You've written a number of books there, Coach.
Well, I haven't had anything famous yet, but we've had a few things that hopefully don't make guys any dumber when they read them. That's kind of the goal. I said, because I wrote a paper once when I was in school, and the teacher gave me an F, and I handed it back, and I said, I did a lot of research on this, and she said, I now know less about World War II than I knew when you wrote it. So I kind of made that a goal. Everything I write from here on out, I don't want people to feel dumber. I did have someone tell me that's 20 minutes of my life I'll never get back. But I can deal with that. I'm married. But you know what I'm getting at there.
Oh, that's hilarious.
But, you know, when I first started coaching, and let me tell you something, 99% of the coaches in this world have forgotten more football than I will ever know. But what I do know, a little bit I do know, a lot of guys, there were a lot of people that paved the way before us, and a lot of guys that helped me a lot and shared information and were willing to open up their offices and their video rooms and even come out and visit and take some time at clinics and write on napkins and things like that. And I think what we have to do as coaches for each other. So I like to share as many ideas as I can and help guys. Sometimes it can be one thing. And at the same time, I'm always listening to your show, and Coach Hendrick was on, and I'm sitting there taking 6 pages of notes about D-line play. So it's all about sharing that information and sharing the knowledge.
Absolutely. Now, let's get into the quick passing game and rollouts and sprint outs and throwing the ball all over the place, 80 yards through a basketball hoop and all that great stuff.
Well, like I said, we never were blessed with great quarterbacks in the Bronx, but we had good kids that were hard-nosed and could command the team and really be a leader on the field. But obviously, you can't just run and you can't just throw. You got to be able to do a little bit of both. We wanted to find a way that we could help our quarterback be successful, put him in a position to be successful, put our receivers in a position to be successful, and of course, when you start running the football, take advantage of defenses that are going to bring extra people into the box. When you and I were talking during the break, we talked about if the team runs power, and you have to defend the power, and you can't do it in your regular set, you bring more guys up to do it. Of course, that makes you vulnerable to the pass game. And that's what would happen to us is when we're starting to run the football real well, we start getting people committed to the run. So we wanted to find a way that we could help our quarterbacks be successful throwing and get the ball to our best athletes in open space. And we use the saying, throw short, run long. And it's an old West Coast pass saying, throw short, run long. So let's have a short, high percentage throw to get an athlete to football in open space. The first way we did it was with our quick pass game. And we actually had a play we called X and Z dive. Our two outside receivers were our X and our Z. And what we'd do is we'd catch the football and throw it to them. Now, when we started off doing this, all it was a read on the corner. We'd look at the corner, and if he's more than 8 yards off, our quarterback's going to catch the ball, and he's going to throw it to the outside receiver. Our outside receiver makes the catch. We tell him to catch the football, turn upfield, and get as many yards as you can. Well, our outside receivers, that's a 5-6 yard play. So we were trying to name it in practice. And one of our coaches said, gosh, that's better than a dive play we run. Well, okay, it's the X dive. Or it's the Z dive if it's to the Z. And our X was always on the left, our Z was always on the right. We didn't flip-flop those guys. So that's how that got started. And then, of course, you watch people run the bubble screen. And what happened was we didn't run the bubble, but we got beat by it. I mean, we just got demolished by the bubble. We were playing an option team, and they're taking our strong safety, our force guy, who's got to play pitch. And what they're doing is they're running a ton of load option. So it forced us to switch responsibilities, put our strong safety on the quarterback, and then put our free safety on the pitch man running the alley. Well, what we started doing was to play the quarterback, we'd bring that guy in a little bit so that he couldn't get blocked by that number 2 receiver. Now we bring him in, and he's leveraged on the bubble. So they're throwing the mess out of the bubble. We said, how do we get that in our deal? So the next week, we call them up. They're not playing us again that year. Hey, tell me how you teach the bubble. So we started running the bubble. And, again, it's a catch and throw for the quarterback. And we don't teach any specific footwork for our bubble guy. We tell them to drop, almost like a drop step, and then karaoke. Mm-hmm. We tell them drop step, karaoke, and work to the numbers. Don't go backwards. Drop step, karaoke. We want them to stay as flat as possible and even gain a little bit of ground. So it's always and out of the gun, it's always going to be a forward pass. If it's not, we're doing something wrong. Mm-hmm. So now we're running the bubble a little bit. And our quick pass game started to grow. Now with that X and Z dive, we said, all right, well, let's start blocking for him. So we started running it to a 2 or 3 receiver side, and we tell the number 2 receiver, you block the first threat. So he outside releases, kind of like a lead blocker would be, and if the outside linebacker or strong safety attacks and the corner drops, block the strong safety. If the if it's a cover 2 shell, you're probably going to block the corner. So we'd work that in practice. That became pretty good play. In fact, we used to say it's 6 or 6. 6 yards or 6 points. And it was pretty nice. Our quarterbacks, we could complete that 99% of the time. Then we started getting, and then putting that together with the bubble, we felt like our quick pass game was pretty good. Well, now, of course, people, if you're just throwing quick passes, well, they don't have to worry about defending over the top. Of course, we put a vertical pass game in and a couple other deals. But then the next part of this, sprint out game. Our quarterback tended to be a decent athlete, and one of the ways that you keep them from getting sacked and help your protection is you change drop points. You use the catch and throw, or the quick game, which is catch and throw for us. You use your 3-step drop, which is catch, pat, pat, throw. Use your 5-step drop, which in the gun is really a 3-step. So it's catch, drive, gather, throw. And then our sprint out. So we're never dropping to the same point, so they don't have the same landmarks for their pass rush stuff. So now you get into the sprint out, and we ran 2 basic combinations. On the front side, on the 2-receiver side, if we ran it to a 2-receiver look, it was always a smash. So our number 2 receiver was running 8 yards and then to the pylon. So 8 yards vertical into the pylon. Our outside receiver was running what we'd call a crack flat. He's going to run like he's going to crack the outside linebacker. Then before he gets to usually he's not going to even get near him. It's a 3 or 4 steps as if he's going to crack. Once the quarterback works outside the tackle, he plants on his top side foot, we call it, and pivots, faces the quarterback, so he's facing him, and then sprints to the sideline. His eyes never come off the quarterback. And what happens is we tell the quarterback, you're 1, 2, 3, read the corner. If the corner's deep, then we're going to throw the flat. If the corner jumps the flat, we should have leverage on the safety over the top. We're going to throw the corner out. So that was how we ran it to a 2-receiver surface. If we wanted to run it to a 3-man surface, then we still have our smash concept. But what we do is we'd have our number 1 receiver now. He's going to run the vertical, and he's going to run what we call the sail route. So he's going to release inside on about a 70, almost a straight line, but he's going to have a slight inside release. I'm not good at geometry, or I'd give you an angle. But we tell him to work to a point 8 yards vertical, 3 yards inside of him. So he's getting a slight inside vertical release. He's going to plant and get vertical for 8 yards, and he's working to the pylon. We tell our number 2 receiver, you're the intermediate guy. He's 12 yards and out. And then we tell number 3, who lines up tight to the line, that he is going to run a flat route no more than 3 yards downfield. And what that does is we are flooding 1/3 of the secondary. Now, off of that, of course, we had a throwback screen that was pretty good if we could complete it. And there's some trick things you can do on the backside. But we completed that 85% of the time and averaged 11 yards of play. It didn't take me to be a genius to figure out we didn't run that enough. Of course, if I was smart enough, we would have run it more. But looking back, boy, that was really, really dangerous. Again, it forces defenses to have to defend the whole football field rather than just, it might be 2nd and 2. If we come up 2nd and 2 and they don't have enough guys outside the box to defend that, we're going to run the sprint out or we're going to throw a quick pass out there. It doesn't matter down in distance. If 2nd and 2 and they have 9 guys in the box and we have a power play called in the box, we're stupid to run power because we're probably not, they're there to stop it. Well, let's take advantage. Let's take advantage of where they're weak. Mm-hmm. And if they're going to stop the power, we're going to throw something else. So our sprint out pass game allowed us to get the ball in the perimeter in a good athlete's hands and allowed them to be able to take advantage of the defenses that were loading up the box or weren't going to be able to protect the perimeter. That quick pass game, it was really the inverts that caused a lot of trouble with those outside linebackers because those are defenses use them to defend the run and the pass. They're usually a force guy in the run. Well, we want to attack that force guy with the pass, and force them to have to defend the pass so that they're a little bit slower being able to participate in run defense. And if we can get them to have to think before they play, we feel like we have a shot. And, usually those strong safety outside linebacker types, they're usually big and fast.
We're talking with James Vint, the current D-line and special teams coach down at Coronado High School in Lubbock, Texas. By his own admission, he says small-time author, but I beg to differ on that. I'm John Anderson. You're listening to Coach's Corner on the CompuSports Radio Network. Back after this.
If you're interested in being a guest on the program, simply email us at john@compusportsradio.com. That's john@compusportsradio.com. This segment of Coach's Corner is sponsored by CompuSports, distributor of the Playmaker Pro and Coach's Office playbook software packages, available at CompuSports.com.
James Vint is my guest on the program, and I'm sure you folks have had a great time listening to this. I've been having all sorts of fun listening to him get started and just preach to us. So, Coach, let's go ahead and tie it all together.
Well, we started off talking about the gun run game and some of the concepts, and then getting into the pistol. And then, of course, all the different things you can do. I think what really brought everything together for us was we had to take all these ideas and concepts and put them to what our kids already had some familiarity with. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, boy, I might like to do that, start with familiarity. And I worked with a wing T school a couple of years ago and helped them do some things out of the pistol. And I said, instead of changing your offense, let's take what you're already doing. Let's adapt some things to this. And they did, and they had some success with it. What we ended up starting off with was we said, okay, we want to run power. So we're going to run power. And we're going to run power where we read the backside 3 technique, we read the backside 3 technique, or we read the backside backer. That was simple enough. We wanted to run inside veer. Inside veer, we're always reading the 5 technique. So then we said, all right, we want to run an isolation play. Same thing. If we have a backside 3 technique, we read the backside 3. If we have a backside 1 and 5, we read the backside 5. Made it really simple for us. We said, okay, well, we want to run jet sweep. Okay, how can we make that a read? Well, on jet sweep, we read the front side 5 technique, always. If he widens, we pull the football. If he does anything else and hesitates, we give the football on the jet. So what we did with our run game was we took a couple of these concepts and we put them together with the idea of being able to read a defender. And we basically went with 3 formations. We went with a trips formation, we went with a doubles formation, and then we went with a 2-back formation from the pistol, where 1 back's offset, 1's behind the quarterback. And we could run those right or left. We could motion in or out of them. So it really gave us enough to do where we could be a little bit complex for the defense, but keep it simple for our guys. And, of course, we did evolve to where we had 15 or 16 different formation looks with just a different tag word and kept it simple. And I think that's vital when you get into any of this, is that it's really easy to take 100 great ideas, but you're not going to be very good at any of them. So what we did was we took those concepts. We're going to read the backside 3 technique. We're going to read the backside 5 technique. We're going to read the backside linebacker. We're going to read the front side 5 technique. We're going to take those 4 concepts, and we're going to build our offense around that. And then we're going to have inside veer. We're going to have our power play. We're going to have our inside zone play. We're going to have our ISO play. And then we're going to have jet sweep. So we really had 5 plays. And then, of course, we had a play action off of each. And then you get into your quick pass game. We had the bubble, and we had the X and Z dive. And then we got into our sprint out game. And then, of course, we had a little bit with the intermediate pass game as well. So we really wanted to limit ourselves to basically 12 concepts, 12 different things we're going to do, 5 run and 7 pass. And I think it gives you an opportunity to be pretty successful. And this stuff with the gun and the pistol and all of that, people shouldn't run it because it's vogue. Run it because it fits what you're going to do. And I think, you were talking during the break about there's more than one way to do things, and it doesn't make one thing wrong or right. Just because somebody's had success with some of this doesn't mean it's best for you. Figure out what fits your guys, and then figure out how to make it work for you. The Florida offense was great with Urban Meyer, but it's going to be a lot different now. It doesn't mean that it's wrong or it was better before. It's just going to be different. You got different coaching staff that's familiar with different things. You got different players. So I think that as you start to tie all this together, make it fit your mentality and run what you know. If the coaches don't know, and I went through this as a coach, and I still don't know a whole lot about a whole lot. And when we tried to do things that we couldn't coach and, more importantly, correct when there were problems, we weren't as good. So I'd recommend, guys, as you start to get into this, really look at what you know you're familiar with and tie it in that way. Of course, guys can always email me, and I will help them any way I can and try not to screw it up too bad for them.
Coach, what is your email if they want to contact you?
It is coachvint@gmail.com, just CoachVint@gmail.com, and they shoot me an email, and I always email guys back with my cell phone, and guys say, I don't know if I feel comfortable calling. Call me. If you shoot me an email, I'll email you. My cell phone number's on there. If I don't answer your question, call me, and we can talk to a coach last week for about 40 minutes, and it's kind of one of those humbling things where this guy calls me, and he's got more state championship rings than I have fingers. And we talked for a few minutes, and I asked him a heck of a lot more than I probably helped him. But just a little bit, we talked through some things, and I think it was a great conversation. I know I learned a lot, and I probably maybe even helped him a little bit with we were talking about footwork and with the veer and the pistol.
Coach, this has been a great conversation, and I think that still needs to be said. How many people do you have to go through before you find a Cam Newton or a Tim Tebow? Will it be 300, 400, 500? Your personnel is what's going to make you, and your ability to use that personnel and use it wisely, I think is a really big key in this.
You're exactly right, and I can tell you right now that who knows when the next Cam Newton or Tim Tebow will come along, and most of us are never going to coach a guy like that. So, how can we make the guy we have the very best he can be? And I think that's where your great point about personnel, it's vital. This fits the dudes we have.
Coach, it's been great to have you on the show, and open invitation to come back. You just let me know when.
I'd love to, and I appreciate it. You have a great show, and boy, someone asked me about this thing, and I said, I don't know, maybe he's had some great guests. He's got to balance it out with little old me. But it's humbling. It was humbling and an honor because it's a great show. It's got some great people, and I enjoy listening to it. It's really an honor to be on here.
Thank you very much, sir. James Vint, our guest today. Let's all give him a hand. And I'm going to have to get some sound effects, clapping, cheering, and all that sort of thing. Thank you once again, sir, for coming on.
Thank you. I appreciate it, John.
The rest of you folks, final thoughts next. A huge thank you to Coach Vint, author and coach down there in Lubbock, Texas at Coronado High School. And what a great gift he's given us today, dropping some knowledge on the host and spreading a wealth of information.
Next week on Coach's Corner,
Coach Christopher Hughesby will be on the program talking about tips for punters, long snappers, and kickers, and also his road to kick in the NFL. Coach's Corner is an Abundant Harvest production on the CompuSports Radio Network. I'm John Anderson, and we'll talk to you next time.